we're probably all in violent agreement that diluting an animal rights message and animal liberation message is not the kind of thing that we want. So, which is what makes me feel so strongly that the grassroots movement needs some unity.
We invited animal advocates from around the world to explore important and complex topics. Through respectful, solution-based dialogue, we attempt to find common ground. Welcome to another episode of Common Ground. I'm super excited to share this episode with you. It's one of our most robust conversations yet, and it actually went a bit long, so it's going to be split into 3 parts. So be sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram and hit that subscribe button so you can see the other episodes. With that, let's start the show. As animal advocates, we want to advance the plight of our fellow animals as fast as possible. But what about the overall strategy, and how do our tactics fit into this? What campaign should we be dedicating our limited time to? Should we focus on food-based outreach?
Now I think we've now got a new generation. I think it's up to us, our age, to actually, like they're saying, going out and teaching them about doing stalls and talking about animal rights and all the rest of it. But I'm also wondering if we've gone past doing that. If it's gone past doing the old stalls with the leaflets and whatever, and maybe try different avenues and whatever. I don't know if Ronnie remembers in Wolverhampton when we did the food. We had a food stall, and we conned the council. You remember that? We conned the council into giving me a food permit. And we basically sold burgers, but we didn't sell them. We gave them away. Somebody gave us some money to do it, and we gave away 300 burgers that were vegan, wrapped in the leaflet of the anti-McDonald's leaflet. I was on the megaphone giving it loads to the crowd because they were stuck because they wanted their free burgers. And the TV and the newspaper turned up because McDonald's was empty. There was nobody there. It was completely empty for the whole day. And I think we've got to start thinking in things like that now, because everybody's got the internet. Everybody's got the information. You can go into supermarkets and all the rest of it. I think we've got the opportunity now to say, look, veganism is different than it was 15 years ago, when it was the young ones and all there was lentils and all the rest of it. Now you can actually get a burger that looks and tastes like a burger.
I do see some people suggesting that food might be a problem, and I think they might be getting at the fact that we've got to obviously make sure that people don't understand veganism as a diet. That's obviously part and parcel of the educational thing. I mean, I don't see that as a problem really, because if you talk about vegan philosophy, and you certainly don't just kind of talk about the food.
Yeah, I think first of all we've got to sort of understand the nature of a stall. What a stall is a stall is actually a filter. A stall's a filter because we could stand in the street and just dish out leaflets to every single person and give stuff out to every single person, you see. So what the stall does, it filters out the people that are more likely to be interested in our message, you see. That's kind of, in a sense, the purpose of a stall. And we can do that. We can kind of do that in various ways. I mean, years ago, I used to go out on my own, and I used to do stalls for whale and dolphin protection, to protect whales and dolphins, you see. And of course, that's a very popular subject with people, and lots of people came up to the stall to sign the petitions. And then what I'd do is I'd give those people a leaflet pack, including leaflets about why they should go vegan. And I basically used that stall as a filter, because what it did was that people came to that stall that cared about some animals. They had some compassion for some animals. So it kind of filtered out all the people that didn't care at all. And so it meant that it was kind of, a better way of using resources. And I think it's kind of the same with food stalls, that attract people that have got an interest in vegan food up to the stall. So it's a filter in that sense. But I think the really important thing with food stalls is to give people information about veganism. Don't just let them have the food and go away. Give them information as well. We've got arrangement with our local Tesco, it's quite amusing how it actually happened. There's a guy in our group, and actually it's the same guy I mentioned earlier. What he does, he goes in supermarkets and he hangs about around the free-from counters in supermarkets. And if he sees people like looking at the vegan products, he'll start talking to them, asking them if they're vegan and having a discussion. And, you know, a lot of them aren't vegan, and he'll give them vegan leaflets, and he'll give people leaflets about our local vegan group and recruit them into the group. And one day he was doing this in Tesco, and he got approached by the Tesco have people that they call community champions, and he got approached by the woman who's a community champion at our local Tesco and got in a conversation, and it ended up with our group being allowed to do stalls in Tesco's foyer, where we basically gave out vegan food samples of products that were sold in Tesco. Tesco liked it because we were promoting them, encouraging people to buy their products. But it was good from our point of view because, you know, what we do when we do that, every person that comes up to the stall, it isn't just a case of them sampling the food. We actually give them vegan information. It's a way of getting, and that, to me, that's the most important thing. That's more important than the food, is getting the information into their hands.
Yeah.
And the other thing we do about stalls has been, like Maz said about the street stalls. We don't do an awful lot of street stalls. In our area, the towns that we cover there's not that kind of many places you can do street stalls. So we do some, but we tend to do stalls at other events. Like we'll do stalls at events for local dog rescues, where they'll have an event, a fundraising event in the park, and they have lots of stalls, and we'll do stalls there, and we'll do stalls at like local green fairs and at local health events, because with veganism it kind of gives you an in into these things. It's associated with health, it's associated with protecting the environment, and it's obviously associated with protecting animals. So you've got these kind of, it opens up doors to have events at all these different things, and we do a lot of that, and we'll often give away food samples at those events. But at the same time, even though we might be doing a stall at, say, a health event, we're still going to give people information about veganism, you know, from an animal liberation point of view.
I really want to, if I win the lottery, I want to get a catering van, and I want to cook like 500 of the juiciest vegan burgers and just go around these towns and just give out for nothing, completely free, just give out these burgers with animal rights information, and invite all the local groups in the area that are the vegan groups and the animal rights groups to do their stalls around the burger van.
Yeah, and I know Viva does something similar around ice cream. I know they've come to Brighton as well as other towns in the UK, where they encourage the local activist group to join.
My only reservation with promoting food, we'd be sort of diluting the message, because if we're presenting people with this, of course, vegan food is brilliant, as we all know, but I'm worried if we put that message forward as this is our only talking, well, not our only talking point, but if we put this forward as like, oh, here's this wonderful burger, okay, yeah, it's wonderful, but are we, is that person, when we're talking to them, only going to think, are they going to think about that burger, or are they going to think about that leaflet which was given with them, the animal rights leaflet? Are they going to think about that, the leaflet or the burger? I think personally, thinking about how humans react to different things, I reckon, I mean, I don't know for sure, but I reckon most people are going to think, oh, well, that was a nice burger. No, not really going to think about the animal rights message. And I think we could also, if we're promoting the vegan food, and we say, oh, this is healthy, and then we're presenting them with vegan cheeses, it's not necessarily healthy, but I think that could be a way that people could come back at you and say, oh, well, this vegan cheese has coconut oil in it, it's not healthy, yada, yada, yada. And we don't really want to let people come at us at that angle, because on that angle, yeah, they're right. And then we can go into the detail of like, oh, well, okay, whole foods, plant-based diet. But then we've completely left the animals out of the conversation. And I personally believe that whenever we're having these conversations, I mean, I guess for some people it will work if we present them with food, but I think that we should be definitely talking about the animals more than the food, because if we're talking about the food, we don't want to become part of this sort of toxic diet culture kind of thing, because you see a lot of people on Instagram, and now I'm not trying to knock anybody on Instagram who promotes yoga and smoothie bowls and things like that, but for me, that's not what I want at the forefront of. But when people think of veganism, I really wouldn't want people to think, oh, it's just smoothie bowls and yoga, or men with their t-shirts off presenting their abs to the world. Which you get
that's
lot
what, like me.
especially with like recently with John Venus, for example, I never really heard of him, but like until now, John Venus has now stopped being vegan. I had a little look at his profile, and it's just, you know, all of his abs out and etc etc, and it was like, okay, I mean, some people might like that, but that's not what should be at the forefront of veganism, I'd say. And there are some very talented individuals in movement who are very talented cooks and things like that, and that's cool. But I think the main health argument or food-based argument we should be presenting is about food, like somebody touched on it earlier, about food justice, and saying, you know, there's a ethics, or what's the type of, I don't know, phrase or whatever that I really like from a group called Food Not Bombs, and they say food is food is a right, not a privilege, and I think that's a really cool message to present to people. So if we're talking to people about food, I think we should talk to them about food security and you know, that sort of thing.
In the Dublin experience, that's exactly what happens. I mean, we've got something on a Sunday called Vegan Street, and it's a really big event. Involves about 5 tables, and then, you know, many yards of posters and banners and stuff. And the cheese bit is just part of it. But also, we never talk about health. I mean, we actually describe our vegan cheese samples as junk food. I say, but you know, it's better than a dairy cheese because there's no rights violations in it. Whatever people come to you with, if you steer it to ethics, that's the conversation you want to have.
You know, and then with health regulations and that, and COVID-19, I think it's going to be harder to give out food on the street in the future.
I worked for a vegan food company called Love Seitan for just about over a year and a half, and I would go to numerous food trade events where I would meet, you know, sort of curious members of the public, other food company people, representatives, and so forth. And I found that through my sort of one-to-one interactions with people, because we would serve seitan products to people, it was kind of a way of making it real for them, of them trying out a seitan product, realizing that this is something that's very, very tasty, very, very versatile, and that they could see themselves eating that product as if they were vegan, and then having a conversation around veganism and the ethics. We should be mindful of where people are at and what barriers they may need to kind of overcome if they have a stereotype view of, I don't get enough protein, vegan food tastes like crap, and then kind of just piercing through that a little bit, and leading on to a conversation about veganism and animal rights.
Food for me is political, and I agree with Oli that we kind of actually observe what happened lately with the movement when we kind of walked away from political kind of statements which defined our movement, I believe, you know. And I see Ronnie Lee, I see Roger, and they all came from that radical left politics, which veganism became kind of, part of. And at the moment we're dealing with AV, and we're dealing with somewhat food club, which, okay, come here, eat the burgers. It's such a privileged kind of a message, and then we kind of put you in that sort of position of feeling sorry for that cute or not so cute animals. Let's do that. And it is kind of all diluted. I am not seeing that food is political. The access to food, I was in Black Lives Matter protest recently, and I see how kind of community is like that mutual aid. Like, speaking of food, you know, that vegan burgers could be brought to that protest. You know, we need to understand where our place is with vegan food, because local Sikh actually restaurant donated food to the protests. It was vegetarian, but nevertheless, I was approached by a few vegans there, people of color, like, you know, protesters, and saying, oh, is it vegan? You know, that's where the place of vegan food is. But we are somewhere else. We're now talking about strategy, how kind of be successful, how be managers like, sales like, what kind of tricks we can use to bring more people. And then we're surprised that we have fascists in the movements, we have racists in the movements. So personally, I'm inspired. Veganism brought me to radical left politics. It's interesting enough, but I was inspired by people like Ronnie Lee, Roger, and others, and ALF and everything else. And that's what kind of I now walked away from that veganism into radical politics. I am vegan still, and I'm going to be, but that's kind of, to me, part of radical politics.
I agree completely with Ollie and Irina that, you know, basically it's trivializing the whole sort of like rights issue to sort of, you know, try and bring in tranches of people because they like, you know, they want to eat a bit of vegan cheese or vegan burgers. I can see that it seems like an easy win, but I think Irina is absolutely spot on. You know, there have been discussions before about how, you know, like a lot of people sort of like become vegans, then sort of like a year later, they're not vegan. Well, maybe this is part of the issue, you know, that they're not doing it for a rights-based thing. They're doing it for, you know, a sort of like a food-based thing.
Would the Grassroots benefit from documenting its guiding principles?
We're probably all in violent agreement that diluting an animal rights message and animal liberation message is not the kind of thing that we want. So, which is what makes me feel so strongly that the grassroots movement needs to, I don't like the word empowered, but, you know, needs some unity. So it strikes me we've got two problems. One is one of identity, because it's easy to support one of the saviors, as you put it, Roger, and it's easy to put money into the national groups because they've got a kind of a name and a logo and a thing that they're supposed to stand for, whereas grassroots perhaps doesn't. I wonder maybe if a manifesto of something, you know, that we can agree on some principles, and that's a thing perhaps to rally around. And the second problem I think we have is scale. On a local group level, it's really, really easy to organize. And then when it breaks out of that local group, we've all got slightly different ideas and not everybody agrees, and it's hard to gain consensus and these sorts of things. And those are the kind of problems we're seeing now with Extinction Rebellion and people splintering off into different groups. So I suppose my point is, I think we need a message. I think we need a kind of a true north, which says this is where we're all heading as independent activists.
Good friend of mine, Tony Harris, is a vegan campaigner. He kind of came up with, he was concerned that veganism, the definition of veganism was passive. It was all about what people didn't do, that you didn't eat animal products and you didn't go to the zoo and you didn't, you know, support animal experiments. It was all about what you don't do. And he felt very strongly that there needed to be an active element, that you kind of, it was important for vegans to do positive things, to actually promote veganism and to promote animal liberation. And so he came up with a definition of veganism that covered that. And I kind of helped him with that. I'm credited as one of the authors of that, but I kind of, it's mainly Tony that came up with it, and I sort of made some suggestions about the definition, and the definition was very, very quickly taken up by the vegan flag. So it's become sort of widely known as the vegan flag definition of veganism. The difference between it really, there's two differences between that definition and the Vegan Society definition. One is it kind of talks about a duty to be active in promoting veganism, and the other thing, it includes the environment, because the Vegan Society definition doesn't say anything about the environment. I argued that it could kind of be stretched to include the environment, but it's not obvious. So the vegan flag definition talks about the exploitation of animals being something that we should try to avoid, and that also includes damage done to their natural habitats. And I think that's really important. I think the environment thing is massively important. It's harm done to the environment by humans is a massive way in which other animals are oppressed, and that needs to come within the ambit of veganism. So that's kind of what that's about. And the other thing I came up with was like it was called a declaration of veganism. It was something that somebody had to. It was like something that someone had to sort of agree with before they could sort of call themselves vegan. And that was quite similar, but it was kind of more from a personal point of view, like I as a person, this is what I believe and this is what I'm going to do type of thing. I think define veganism as what it should really be, because to me, veganism is animal liberation. You see, veganism isn't a diet. It's not a diet, it's a philosophy. And the diet's part of the philosophy.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. Although I sometimes wonder now that there's an awful lot of time being spent defining veganism when we're all sort of grassroots people. I wonder if it's better to get some principles together which says this is what grassroots stands for. Maybe that would give us an identity and something which more people could rally behind.
Thank you for watching this episode of Common Ground. As I mentioned at the beginning, this was quite a long recording session, and we set a new record, so it's being divided into 3 parts. So if you want to see those other parts, be sure to hit that subscribe button and follow us on social media. We also want to have the most diverse representation of the animal advocate community as possible, so please share our Facebook events, and you may want to consider using that Facebook Invite Friends feature so we can be sure this is getting to as many animal advocates as possible. Thanks for watching, be sure to share your thoughts in the comments, and we'll see you in the next one.